To have a benchmark for comparison, consider the case of constrained tax adjustment and external commercial borrowing, since we already learned that it smoothed the adjustment of the private sector. This case is captured by the blue bold lines of the figure, which shows the dynamic path for the consumption tax rate, panel A, total public debt, panel B, the real interest rate, panel C, private consumption, panel D, private investment, panel E, and GDP growth, panel F. Note that here we set the tax ceiling at 18% instead of 17.5% used in the previous unit. This still ensures a consistent comparison of the macroeconomic effects of both external commercial and domestic borrowing. The main reason for considering a higher cap for the tax rate is that if we were to set the cap at 17.5%, it would make domestic debt explosive because, in the calibration, domestic loans are the most expensive financing source. Now consider the macroeconomic effects of domestic borrowing. See the red dashed line. In the first decade, the consumption tax rate adjustment is similar to that under external commercial borrowing, panel A. But domestic borrowing leads to higher debt accumulation, in part because its real interest rate is always above the rate on external commercial borrowing, panels B and C. Compared with external commercial borrowing, domestic borrowing aggravates the crowding out effects on the private sector. Private consumption and investment decline in the first years by much more than under external commercial borrowing, panels D and E respectively. For instance, private investment sharply drops by almost 4% in year 3, while the declines of this investment under external commercial borrowing never exceed 1%. These stronger crowding effects are explained by the fact that domestic borrowing does not provide additional resources from abroad, as in the case of external commercial borrowing. It is also due to the assumption of limited private capital mobility. To finance the higher public investment, the government borrows domestically from residents, and therefore, resources are shifted from the private sector to the public sector. The negative effect on the private sector of domestic borrowing can have important implications for real GDP growth, which also help explain the much higher debt ratios. Note that, in the first years, the strong decline of private investment due to domestic borrowing translates into lower GDP growth than under external commercial borrowing, panel F. This helps explain the higher debt to GDP ratios of domestic borrowing. And since both the debt to GDP ratios and the real interest rate of domestic borrowing are higher, then the government needs to maintain a higher tax rate than the one associated with external commercial borrowing. This greater fiscal effort prevents debt from becoming explosive. Panel B.